So this is my new attempt at a title screen. I need to mess around with GIMP a little bit more to try and find something that I like a little bit more. I happen to think that that's just cool stuff, the whole burning in and out thing. This is where I'm going to be I think I'm pretty committed to using this style for bringing in lists. I think that it might be, I don't like the way the points look when you put them on there. So I think I'm going to leave those off for right now, and if I get a bunch of feedback saying otherwise, I'll keep them off. I just don't think they look good when you have the points on there. So now we're starting the battle report. I had to readjust the camera because the table that I was on was not very conducive to recording, especially since my tripod has to sit on the table right now. What I'm hoping is that after my camera gets here, I should have a tripod that mounts on the floor, and that should stop the table from shaking, potential fallovers on the camera, and it'll allow me to get a better gist of the whole table, because right now I can only capture so much of it with the style of tripod that I'm using. So this is myself versus Danielle. Those man-o-war that she's deploying on the table are all boom howlers. So on this, with us playing outflank here, it looks like she's trying to avoid the forest and the rubble that's in front of her lines. There isn't much in the way of Pathfinder in her army, so it looks like she's just trying to go around it instead of try to go through it. I also am trying to work on finding the right music track to play in the background. I think it's important to have one there so that the gap in speech is mitigated with having some music in the background, but I need something that I just need to find a track that I can make and save and have it go fluidly throughout the whole thing. I unfortunately haven't quite got there yet. I think depending on how this program renders the video or how long it takes to render it, I think I'm quite content with this Cyberlink Power Director program that I have. It's decent. It's on sale it's Cyber Monday right now, so we're going into Cyber Monday deals, and people are extending them out to the 1st, but the Cyberlink folks seem to have theirs on for, I think 50% off or something along those lines. You probably just noticed the gap in the music that I'm talking about. Right now I'm just using YouTube's samples, trying to find something that works out pretty well and kind of fits the theme of War Machine for the most part, or just even Cinematic Battle for that matter. I think the intro music is legit for intro music. I just need to find something that loops well and isn't too distracting for music that gets played in the background on these, and it's also interesting trying to find the right level for the music, but I'm working it out here. So as you also see on my side, I've got Iron Fang Ulans on the table. Those are actually Greylord Outriders for the moment. I ended up bringing the list with me, but realized that I left my Outriders at home. I think I had 3 lists in my bag, and I just wanted to bring Andre out for another good little try here. And when I ended up dropping this into Calaban, we presented our pairings at first. She was playing Rask in Calaban, and I ended up just telling her that my pairing would probably be something like Irusk and Andre, because that's what I had in my bag, minus Karchev, which I wasn't going to put on the table at all that night. So I ended up dropping Andre into this list because I feel like it's a little bit more parasite-proof, even though that's really not something that you can do as a Khador player with 4 heavy warjacks in your battle group. So, but this way the the Parasite is much more effective on a unit than it is on just a Warjack. I mean, knocking it down 3 armor is a big deal, trust me, but taking a unit of Ulans or a unit of Shock Troopers down 3 armor is a little bit more hurtful than just punking a Warjack. Now, if it were anybody other than Calaban, it wouldn't be so much of a gray area, because you'd be like, if you were playing against Gaspy 1 and he throws out Parasite, you're landing it on 1 jack, and that's usually the only time you can cast it, other than, you know, a bad example, but the Scarlock Thrall can probably get it out there too. Calaban, however, can juggle that thing as long as his army's killing things. So you can see that the Pharaoh Brigands are kind of leading the charge, with the Blindwalker kind of leading up the rear there behind them. Now, I think that I don't have the privilege of having Arc Nodes in my army, other than with Old Witch, who I've only put on the table a few times, but in my opinion, or at least in my experience, if you throw an Arc Node behind guys that are trying to move up and shoot and do work, you're probably not going to get much, or you're not going to be able to utilize that Arc Node as much as you'd like. Now, I think we paused the clock here for one reason or another. Oh, we had ordered pizza. So in a perfect world where I'm a good video editor, this point of no activity on the table would be edited out. However, I'm fairly certain that in the future I won't have issues like this come up very often, where a game gets interrupted for a period of time, but something to keep in mind in the future. So this is my first time trying to record a video at 200% playback, and I can definitely say that just from watching her turn, it seems like it'll be alright, but now we're on mine, so we'll see if I can actually comment on this and get it done without having to fill up a bunch of space. So here the Grey Lords are just running up and trying to get as many on the hill as I can to give them a defense value of 17 and stay out of the Boom Howler's charge range. Now, I've also got this nice handy-dandy wall here that is making my jacks a little bit more survivable too at defense 14, and with Escort up, they can run 10 inches to get pretty far up the table. Escort is something that it seems like Khador has in abundance, if you consider 2 casters having an abundance. I will always say that Andre is basically the love child of Harkovich and Irusk 1. He just didn't really get the best of them. So here I have to throw out a Veil of Mist template so I can get my battle group through the rest of it. I really wanted to deploy more central with them so I could get them on the table, or up in the middle of the table a little more quicker, or be able to choose which side I could go to without many issues. So here you can see the Man-O-War Shock Troopers. They shield walled with the Covenant giving them desperate pace, and they had Tactical Supremacy on them. With the way Tactical Supremacy works now, I really should just move them up 9 inches when I shield wall, because Tactical Supremacy works at the end of that unit's activation instead of the activation of the entire army. So this list is extremely fast. You know, one of the common things Khador players will say is our jacks are too slow, or XYZ is so slow, Shock Troopers being a big one. And with having desperate pace and a couple casters who can speed them up pretty well, I think that Khador just has to pay for its speed, which I guess works pretty well when you look at the fluff side, because fluff is rules really in the way this game works. And you can see a special appearance by my pizza from Pizza Hut, which I have Stockholm Syndrome over, because it's the only pizza place that I can order from in my hometown. So here it looks like Scarith is trying to get a little frisky and move up and spray some Man-O-War. I think Scarith only, the way that the spray head lined up, might have grabbed 2. for some reason I remember him grabbing one, but with them being in base to base, I can't imagine that Scareth wouldn't have grabbed two of them. So just trying to get some early damage on them with Scareth's spray only being POW 12. It's really tough for him to crack Arm 21. Dice -9 is still pretty decent if you're boosting. I mean, you're looking for spikes, but it looks like the way the spray lined up there was only one Man-O-War. So I was also on two, I think 3-foot tables that were put together to make one. So there's a good chance that I might not have seen a good angle on the spray either. So that's the trouble of going into a game store on a crowded Yu-Gi-Oh! / let's bring every random board game we can and spread out, because nerds do not like being next to each other whatsoever, so they have to spread out all over the store, as it were. So I'm liking the fading in and out on this one. Now I don't, as I said, when I get a decent camera, or the decent camera comes in, I shouldn't have to worry about stitching these videos together like that, but it is nice to see that I've got some extra effects tools that are really easily accessible, and I can get the transition to go pretty seamlessly, whereas the other ones I had to monkey with it a little bit more than what you'd expect. So I think the thing that happened here was there's a big chunk of video missing. My phone had 2 video sessions, or 2 battle report sessions on it. So when I was getting around to recording this game with Danielle, it was quite full, and my phone did not appreciate me having this much data on it. So the Man-O-War had charged Scareth and made some pretty quick work out of him with some POW 14 charges. They needed 7s to hit, and they were dice off 3, so I think it took 3 Man-O-War after the assault charges, or after the assaults, to get in there on him. I have 2 jacks that are hanging out behind the building, getting ready to countercharge, and or not countercharge, but counter trade, I guess. I don't know. There's a term for it, and it's just escaping me right now. They're ready to capitalize off peace trades, I think. So maybe it's only 1 jack that's behind that wall, because there's 3 juggernauts. So 1 jack behind the wall, 1 jack behind the building, and then the front jack I decided to present to force Danielle to come out and have to deal with it. I also think that, well, Andre's in that bunker behind my girded warjack, and that turn I did end up feeding, and now you can kind of see the consequences of that feat turn. So Danielle ended up putting what was it? 3 shots, one charge attack from the Ironback Spitter, and then a couple brigand shots into the parasited Juggernaut, and it got hurt pretty hard. There were only 3 boxes left on that jack once everything was said and done. The problem is that my feat keeps proccing as long as I get damaged, so my Juggernaut was fortunately enough able to walk back into my bunker of mechanics. And you can see Andre kind of swinging his pistol in a direction, and that's super more cinematic than anything for me, because Dahlia was just on the edge of that zone. She was stopping me from controlling it, or dominating it, and Andre ended up rolling a 10 to hit her with his hand cannon, and ended up putting her in the dirt on the first shot. So that was really good for me, because getting rid of her is not super easy in this list, because the only ranged attacks that I really have outside of my Warcaster are the junky hand cannon, or the shield cannon shots from my shock troopers, and they would need unboosted 11s to hit her, and I'm not really yippy about that. So I ended up taking a lot of there was the Wrestler that is in the opposite zone where the Boom Howlers ended up making some short work of the Turnians. However, the turn previous, the Turnians had put a lot of them in the dirt. There was the Calaban player maybe they forgot or didn't conceptualize properly right away that the Turnians don't have guns, they have magic sprays. So even while I was engaged, I could dance around the boom howlers a little bit and get some good sprays to take out a lot of the boom howlers. I think I ended up, the first turn I went in, ended up getting boom howler who ended up running to engage instead of doing cacophony. So more video cutoffs just due to the phone not being able to hold all that information. So I ended up winning on scenario on this game. There was a lot of jamming that ended up happening after my feet kind of shut down a lot of her offensive output. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I really like the way this came out, but it's a little choppy.